Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. It's almost unimaginable that in the year 2012, that an act, a hate crime so heinous occurred in a place of worship. It's despicable, but it did occur. And unfortunately, in the years that have gone on, Sikhs have been a target just because of their unique and distinct identity. And it's so funny because in North American society today, if a businessman is distinct, if a celebrity is distinct, if a sports player is distinct and they're unique, they're celebrated and revered. But when an individual is distinct because of their religious practice, when an individual is a minority, then they can be victimized and targets. No community should be targeted as a result of the diversity that makes them who we are. In North America, we value our community. We value society that values the richness of cultural and ethnic diversity, and this brings richness to our lives. And the fabric of our society now has to be woven to perpetuate unity, not division. We must think of ourselves as global citizens, and we must unconditionally condemn all acts of violence, all acts of hate crimes. We have to think, just as Sajveer said, that an act of violence or a hate crime that occurred in a place of worship happened to be a Sikh Gurdwara in Wisconsin, but it could happen at any place of worship. And by terrorizing the Sikhs, all places of worship, all societies, all religious communities have been terrorized. So where do we go from here? And how do we come together? We must voice our commitment to our society, and we must voice our commitment to a world without violence. When we look at society today, there's lots of violence on the TV, on the radio, on the news, on the internet. Anything that's violent or hateful makes the news. And as individuals, we see violence too, on global issues like wars, on national level, on societal levels like gangs, on local levels like crimes and robberies, and then on an individual level, bullying, racism, physical abuse, verbal abuse. But what actually perpetuates violence or hate? Violence only happens when there is greed, when there is anger, when there is an attempt to control or have power over someone else. So one way to look at violence is when there is a perceived difference between you and me. That's when violence can occur. The 10th spiritual master, Guru Gobind Singh, stated in his scriptures, Manas ki jaat sabe ek hai pachanvo. Recognize that all of humankind is the same. All are one and all are equal. And what does that mean to us today? Very literally, it means that recognize the other person you're looking at is actually you. Ek hi swaroop sabe ek jot janabo. We are all made in that image of God's divine form, and God's light pervades in all of us. So if there's no difference between two individuals, and they are truly one, then there should be no opportunity for violence, for any power struggle, or for any control. And this is what the Sikh philosophy and the Sikh gurus taught us. So when this violence happens, it happened, it's been happening, and unfortunately we know there will be other cases. When this violence happens, what should be our response? Throughout Sikh history, the Sikhs have faced persecution for their faith and identity. The Sikh gurus taught the Sikhs how to stand against it by example. And one way that we were taught by Guru Tegh Bahadur is to absorb the violence. The ninth Sikh master, Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji, made the ultimate sacrifice of his life to stand against violence. In 1679, when the Hindu religion was facing eradication on the Indian subcontinent due to the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb, the Hindu elders approached Guru Tegh Bahadur and asked for his help. He was imprisoned, he was tortured, but he did not give up his faith. And by paying for the ultimate sacrifice with his life, Guru Tegh Bahadur was beheaded, but his actions changed the course of history by protecting the right of freedom of religion on the Indian subcontinent. So we as a Sikh community, what are we doing? We're absorbing this violence. We are praying for the souls of those who have departed. We are praying for the perpetuator of the violence. We are praying for all communities, and we are reaching out to everyone to say this violence is wrong. Another way to deal with violence is to respond with it and deal with it directly. The 10th Sikh master, Guru Gobind Singh, stated in the Zafarnama that you must exhaust all means. You must engage in dialogue, discourse, and negotiation. And when everything has been exhausted, only then is it righteous to stand in self-defense. And the Sikh community worldwide, the Sikh diaspora worldwide is engaging, is talking, is communicating, is saying that this hate crime is not against Sikhs, it is against all humanity. One of the popular misconceptions is that religion and religious beliefs perpetuate violence. But that only happens when a few individuals manipulate the religion and their philosophies. And actually, all religions speak of unity and peace and love. And it's the essence of all religions when we look at it, and through education, understanding, and interfaith dialogue, we can overcome this violence in our lives. So I ask you all, how do we come together? How do we support each other? We must dialogue. We must educate. We must communicate. We must exemplify through the oneness of humanity, through our words, our deeds, and our thoughts. When we dialogue against hate and violence, when we dissect the reasons for it, then we can raise up against violence in whatever form or shape it happens. Today it happened against the Sikhs this last week, and the community mourns. But we also realize that this happens all around the world every single day. We have to pray for unity of all humankind. When we deal with this issue on an individual level, then we can impact it on our society, and then we can impact it on our country level, and then we can impact it on a very global level. Then only can we come together and stand in ardas humbly before the Almighty and do our formal prayer and end our formal prayer each day by saying, says Guru Nanak, may thy spirit be exalted, and may all people, all women, all men, all children, all countries, all races, all humankind prosper by thy grace, O divine Creator. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.